Welcome to the reading of the Times Reporter newspaper for this fabulous Friday, May 15th, 2020. My name is Pam, and let's begin today's reading with the area deaths. Lynn Allen Newty, 67, of Zoar, died Monday, May 11th in his residence. A memorial service will be held at a later date. Oscar L. Koch, 90, of Beach City, died Wednesday, May 13th at Mercy Medical Center in Canton. A private family graveside service will be held Monday, May 18th. Patricia L. McCrone, 93, passed into eternity on May 12th at the Riverside Manor Nursing and Rehab Center in Newcomerstown. Pat has requested a celebration of life service followed by a graveside service, which will be scheduled at a later date. Barbara Ellen Zimmerly, 80, of Berlin, died peacefully on Wednesday, May 13th at her home, surrounded by her family following a 9-year courageous battle with progressive supranuclear palsy. Private family services will be held, and a service to celebrate her life will be held at a later date. Well, my friends, that concludes the death notices for Friday, May 15th. Let's move on to our first article. Strasburg woman, 19, dies in crash, by Lee Morrison. A 19-year-old Strasburg woman was killed and 3 other people injured in a 2-vehicle crash Thursday on Interstate 77, about 4 miles south of Newcomerstown, according to state troopers at the New Philadelphia Post of the Ohio Highway Patrol. Ariel L. Stout, 19, of Strasburg, was driving her 2009 Chevrolet Impala northbound on I-77 when the car traveled through the median and was struck by a southbound 2019 Chevrolet Equinox. Stout was pronounced dead at the scene by the Tuscarawas County Coroner Office investigator, according to Sergeant Leroy Bethel. There's a slight curve where she came through the median, but there's no indication of what caused her to lose control, Bethel said, adding that it wasn't raining when the crash occurred. A male juvenile passenger, who is Stout's child, was transported by ambulance to the Southeastern Ohio Regional Medical Center in Cambridge for non-life-threatening injuries. No information about his condition was immediately available. The SUV's elderly driver and passenger, both from Parma Heights, also were transported by ambulance to Southeastern Ohio Regional Medical Center for treatment. No information about their condition was immediately available. The 2:42 p.m. crash was less than a half a mile from the Tuscarawas and Guernsey County line, and southbound traffic was backed up for about a mile. One lane of traffic was kept open most of the time before both lanes of traffic were reopened at 4:50 p.m. The crash remains under investigation. Assisting state troopers at the scene were personnel from Newcomerstown Emergency Rescue Squad, Tri-County Joint Ambulance, the Tuscarawas County Coroner's Office, and Jim's Towing. How very sad. Our next article is titled, "We Will Be Ready to Educate All Children in the Fall," by John Baker. Dover schools officials are dealing with a great deal of uncertainty as they make plans for the opening of Dover City schools this fall in the midst of the corona pandemic. It's unrealistic to develop an overly detailed plan because we don't have clear information yet, Superintendent Carla Burney told the Board of Education Tuesday. But we also feel the responsibility and the need to provide clarity to our staff and our parents and our students. Everyone is looking to us and asking what next fall will look like, and we're hoping to get that information out as quickly as possible. The one thing we want parents to know is that whatever path Dover Schools is required to implement, or whatever path is needed for their specific situation or child, we will be ready to educate all children in the fall, and I want our community to know that. We're working on a variety of options. The district is working on 3 scenarios for fall. The first is to return to school with minimal changes in student schedules and transportation. We know how to do that, and we would love nothing better, she said. The second is returning to school but with significant restrictions, social distancing, significant limitations to the number of students in classrooms or on school buses, and limitations to common areas of the building like cafeterias and hallways. Teachers would need to be prepared to switch to online learning at any time for an individual student who needs to stay home, or if the whole building is shut down again, or a group of students need to go into quarantine. The third is to continue teaching online as the district is doing now. We can't wait until August to know exactly what we're doing and then begin to plan, Bernie said. The state has put together a committee to provide written guidelines for school districts. A report will be ready in the next couple weeks. In other business Tuesday, the Board of Education accepted donations for the Dover Meals Program. Donors included Richard and Connie Stoffer for $140, Wayne York $2,000, Andrew and Tara Ireland $100, an anonymous donation of $200, Brandon and Melissa Tickle $100, Nancy and James McDonald $500, Ron Whetstone $100, Dover VFW Post 3463 $2,000, Scott Blind $50, an anonymous donor $100, Tim and Colleen Smith $80, and Susan and Joe Helbling $600. The program is providing 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches each week to about 500 Dover students. Bernie said the federal government has extended the time the meals can be served until June 30th. When school is over, which is the end of the month, we will continue to feed students the 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches a week until the end of June, she said. And it wouldn't surprise me if they even would extend that deadline through the summer. Accepted the following donations: $1,150 from HRN Construction to be used for graduation videos for the class of 2020. $11,600 from the Dover Band Boosters to purchase new saxophones for the high school band. Sousaphones for the high school band. $8,917.50 from the Dover High School class of 1962 to be used for the purchase of a clock for outside of the new high school. And a $372,700 grant from the Muskingum Watershed Conservancy District for an underground water detention system at the new high school. Wow, those are some wonderful donations. Our next article, Hair Salons and Barbershops Opening on Friday. Yay! By Nancy Molnar. Customers will be flooding into salons to curl up and dye, get do-or-die designs, and have their heads and nails done Friday. The pent-up demand will be met as Ohio's beauty and barbershops are able to reopen Friday for the first time in 2 months after being closed to slow the spread of coronavirus. Will they be able to say the gang's all hair? Probably not. Social distancing requirements and restrictions against group gatherings mean that clients should not congregate. At Lock 7 Hair Studio near Boulevard, owner Heather Jones has removed all the chairs from the waiting area. Clients are asked to stay in the parking lot until called. They are asked not to bring anyone with them for their appointments. Masks are strongly recommended. Clients are advised to make appointments in advance. Jones is happy to see the state-mandated closing in her rearview mirror. It hit the fledgling salon after it had been open only 9 months. It's been scary, Jones said. We're a new business. We haven't even been open a year yet. With the shop closed and no money coming in, she and boyfriend Bobby Eddy had to pay the mortgage on their half of the plaza where the salon is located. They also have to pay on a loan for remodeling the property they bought 2 years ago. At first, getting assistance from the Small Business Administration was difficult, Jones says, but the process was completed with help from Steve Schilling at the Small Business Development Center at Kent State University in Tuscarawas. Lock 7's closure meant laying off 2 hairstylists and a nail technician. 2 stylists who rent workstations at Lock 7 were also shut down. Jones said she and Eddie were able to survive financially because he still had his job as a Dover firefighter. If he wasn't, we would have been in a totally different situation, Jones said. During their downtime, Jones and the stylists did continuing education. They were recertified in the use of their main cleaning agent, Barbicide, which is effective against coronavirus. They took online courses about new product lines, color techniques, and chemical straightening services. I also took a course on coronavirus, Jones said. She and customers have been scheduling appointments in advance. She and one stylist are booked until June. Another is scheduled through most of May. Haircuts are the main attraction. Everybody wants in as soon as possible, Jones says. The guys are like, I need it done right now. I have a friend who says that. Anyway, I'm glad too that they're opening. Our next article is Minerva couple among suspects indicated in Carroll County. A Minerva couple who authorities say had what is believed to be methamphetamines in the presence of children were indicted on 3 charges by Carroll County grand jury. The defendants are Siler J. Manley, 24, and Don M. McCoy, 27. They both were indicted on felony counts of aggravated possession of drugs and endangering children. They were also indicted on misdemeanor possession of drug paraphernalia. The charges stem from an April 8 visit to the couple's residence by Carroll County Department of Job and Family Services, caseworkers, and Minerva Police. Others indicated by the Carroll County grand jury are Christopher A. McKittrick, 29, of Carrollton, for carrying a concealed weapon and possession of cocaine. Tyler P. Faulkner, 19, of East Rochester, for failure to comply with orders of the police. David A. Hart, 40, of Malvern, for felonious assault and domestic violence. Eugene J. Arkenberg, 34, of Alliance, for aggravated possession of drugs and possession of drug paraphernalia. David P. Krebs, 43, of Bergholz, for felony domestic violence. William T. Carter Jr., 50, of Wadsworth, for felony failure to appear. Brandon L. Keister, 28, of Bergholz, for carrying a concealed weapon, improper handling of firearms in a motor vehicle, and aggravated possession of drugs. William D. Barnes, 21, of Sandy Township, for carrying a concealed weapon and improper handling of firearms in a motor vehicle. Well, our next article is titled, Chalk Walk Continues for Dover 5th grade students despite the coronavirus shutdown, by John Baker. A global pandemic and a little bit of rain couldn't stop a popular tradition, the annual chalk walk for 5th grade students at Dover Avenue Elementary. Normally, the children would head downtown and chalk on the sidewalks in front of businesses there. Because of social distancing restrictions, that couldn't happen this year. So instead, it was a drive-through event in the parking lot of Dover First Moravian Church. The kids came through in their parents' vehicle, received chalk and gifts from the Dover Public Library and free milk and cookies. The event was staffed by Dover Avenue teachers and volunteers from the church. Then the students' assignment was to go home and create chalk art in their driveway and send a photo to their art teacher, Wendy Moan, of what they had created. We do it every year in the spring, Moan said. It's a big deal to 5th grade. It's something they definitely look forward to. They have all asked, are we still doing the chalk walk? John Wallace, pastor of Dover First Moravian, approached the school with the drive-through idea, and school officials thought it was great. This is not typical, but the kids are excited to see their teachers, Moan said. A steady stream of vehicles passed through the church parking lot Thursday morning, despite some intermittent rain showers. Moan said turnout was great. The church has sponsored the event every year since it was started in 2011 as a community outreach project. The Chalk Walk is not funded by the school district. Jerry Bullock Crafts has donated the chalk for the last 6 years. Other assistance has come from Toland Herzig Funeral Home and Crematory and Terry and Susan Corder. Wallace originated the idea after he came to Dover. He had been involved in similar events in other communities. I've always enjoyed the arts, so that's part of who I am, he says. He supports people expressing themselves through art. You really see that today, especially with people quarantined, how creative and expressive they become, and they do things they wouldn't normally have done, he says. Wallace said it was important for the students that the chalk walk continue because they have had so many disappointments in their lives in recent weeks because of the coronavirus shutdown. We've got to give them something to hold on to, and I think these kinds of programs are important, Wallace said. Well, Moving on. Our next article is titled Tuscarora's Board of Developmental Disabilities Seeking Teacher. The Tuscarora's Board of Developmental Disabilities is seeking a preschool teacher to fill a position at Starlight School Integrated Preschool. This position will work under direct supervision of the Starlight School principal. In the role, the teacher would plan and implement instructional programs and note progress on program goals and/or objectives in accordance with the individual education plan of assigned students. I think I have a next article. Newcomerstown man arrested for a 2006 murder in Sydney by Lee Morrison. Authorities arrested a 46-year-old Newcomerstown man for the 2006 unsolved murder of a Sydney, Ohio woman, according to Tuscarawas County Sheriff Orvis Campbell. Alan Rommel Harris of 602 Tuscarawas Avenue, Newcomerstown, has been indicted in Shelby County on one count of murder in the June 17, 2006 death of Melinda Schaefer McKinney. Harris was arrested without incident at his home today, Thursday, at about noon. McKinney was 48 years old when Harris is accused of repeatedly stabbing her with a knife, according to the grand jury indictment filed in Shelby County Common Pleas Court in southwestern Ohio today. Harris was 32 at the time. We had been alerted that Harris was violent, Campbell said. On a domestic violence call in Shelby County, he got into a fight with a police officer and tried to get the officer's gun, but a state trooper there as backup tased him. With that in mind, two sheriff's officers in plain clothes used a ruse at the front of the home to distract Harris from the presence of the sheriff's office SWAT team, deputies and two canine deputies at the rear of the home or nearby. The ruse worked, and Mr. Harris was under arrest before he even realized what was going on, Campbell said. No one was injured, and there was no damage to the rental home. 3 other people inside the house were not arrested. Newcomerstown police assisted at the scene, and a Tri-County ambulance crew was nearby in case anyone was injured during the arrest. A small marijuana grow inside the home was confiscated by Newcomerstown police. We arrested him on a warrant for failure to pay child support in Shelby County, Campbell said. After he was in our jail, he was served with the murder indictment, and he's going to be transported soon to Shelby County. Our detective bureau has been working with Sydney police on surveillance of the residence and verifying that Mr. Harris lived there. Our congratulations go out to the Sydney Police Department and all of those who worked on this cold case for so long to represent the victim, Campbell said. Earlier Thursday morning, evidence was presented to a Shelby County grand jury about the ongoing murder investigation of Melinda Schaefer McKinney. After reviewing the evidence, grand jurors issued an arrest indictment for one count of murder with a repeat violent offenders specification, according to Sydney Police Captain Jerry A. Tangeman. Harris has been a person of interest since the early months of the murder, Tangeman said. There was insufficient evidence at the time to make an arrest. New advances in DNA testing recently linked Harris to the murder. For 14 years, this case has been on the top of the watch list for the Sydney Police Department. Detectives regularly reviewed this case file, followed up on new information as it came in, and more importantly, would review new possibilities in scientific lab testing. He said that over the years, detectives conducted about 124 interviews with about 88 people, conducted 3 field searches, 5 polygraph tests, and executed 10 search warrants. There have been investigative collaboration with the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, the FBI, Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office, Shelby County Sheriff's Office, and the Shelby County Prosecutor's Office. A special thanks needs to be given by our department and community to the law enforcement partners at the Tuscarawas County Sheriff Office, who were instrumental in apprehending Alan Harris when the warrant was issued. Tangeman said, as long of a journey as this case has been for law enforcement, it fails in comparison to the despair that the family of Melinda McKinney Schaefer has had to endure for the last 14 years in not knowing who murdered Melinda and holding him accountable. I hope that they can finally get closure. Well, our next article is titled, Hooked on History. Yerkesville Brothers Endured Hardships of the Oregon Trail in 1850 by John Baker. The McCord boys were tough, resilient, and inventive, qualities that served them well as they crossed the continent in an ox-drawn wagon in 1850 and began new lives in the raw, sparsely settled Oregon country. James Sterling McCord and his younger brother, William Rankin McCord, spent their formative years in Mill Township. Their parents were an immigrant Irish couple who came to America in 1825. They eventually settled in Newburgh, New York, on the Hudson River, where James was born July 15, 1829, and Williams was born August 1, 1830. They were the only children in their family to survive infancy. In 1842, the family moved to Tuscarawas County, settling in the Ross School District in the central part of Mill Township. By 1850, the two young brothers were living in Yerkesville, where their occupation is listed as laborer in the 1850 census. That year, Oliver B. Birney and his wife of Yerkesville decided to move to Oregon, and they took the McCord boys with them. The McCord boys were to work for Mr. Birney for some time after their arrival at their destination for the expense they incurred on the way, according to Ralph W. Hinz in his book, History of Ross School District No. 2. Traveling the Oregon Trail by wagon was not for the faint of heart. It was a 2,000-mile journey in which immigrants had to contend with bad weather, accidents, hostile Indians, and boredom. Disease, including cholera, killed thousands, but the reward at the end of the trail was a chance to start a new life in a new country. About 6,000 Americans made the overland trip to Oregon in 1850. During the latter part of the journey, which was by ox team, provisions became scarce and the boys were compelled to shift for themselves, Hinz wrote. Despite untold hardships, James and Williams made it to their new home that autumn. In the course of time, the McCord boys were married and never came back to see the Matthew Sterling hilltop where they once often played, Hinz wrote. Both of the McCords found success in Oregon. In 1851, James traveled to the gold mines of Northern California to try his luck. The following year, he returned to Oregon, where he married Olive Evelyn Brown on March 12, 1854. She was a native of Toledo who came to Oregon with her parents and brothers in 1852. James and Olive had 10 children. James owned a farm near Oregon City, and he died March 5, 1909, at the age of 79. William found work immediately once he arrived in Oregon. He helped build the Lot Whitcomb, the first steamboat ever constructed to navigate the Willamette River. It was launched in December 1850. McCord was associated with John Tucker Scott in the operation of a sawmill on Gales Creek, Washington County in 1853. For a number of years thereafter, he was a carpenter and builder in Oregon City, the Dalles, Albany, and Portland. Mr. McCord was of an ingenious and inventive turn of mind. His obituary in the Portland Oregonian newspaper said, "In the early 80s, he invented the snail shell fish wheel and built and operated the second fish wheel established on the Columbia River. He built and established the fish wheel at Bradford's Island, just above Bonneville, and for several years was associated with the late Frank M. Warren, who lost his life in the Titanic wreck." A fish wheel is a device situated in rivers for catching fish, which looks and operates like a watermill. William McCord was also a veteran of the Yakima Indian War, fought in the 1850s. In 1856, he married Harriet L. Scott, who came overland to Oregon in 1852. She drove the loose stock riding Shuttleback, an old mare, according to the book Covered Wagon Women, 1852, The Oregon Trail. Harriet became a spiritualist and a medium. The McCords had 3 children. Mr. McCord was exceedingly fond of children and was of a kind, genial disposition, his obituary said. He was lovingly called Uncle Billy by his many nephews and nieces, as well as by hosts of friends of the younger generation. William McCord died January 2, 1923, at the age of 92. Well, Let's talk about this next item. Council members push to reopen Quaker Stadium in New Philadelphia. Some of New Philadelphia's council members are pushing for the administration to reopen Quaker Stadium. Councilman John Zuckel and Rob Marr at Monday's council meeting asked Mayor Joel Day to consider opening the track, but blocking off the field so kids can't play there. Zuckel said a lot of older residents rely on the track to stay active. Councilman Kelly Ricklick says he thinks the community should be allowed to use the facility as long as they're following the rules and practices of social distancing. Day ordered the stadium closed 2 weeks ago after receiving multiple complaints about students and others gathering in groups there. He says he's all for reopening the facility with restrictions, but it's going to be up to the city health commissioner. Well, my friends, it's that time again when this concludes the reading of the Times Reporter for, I believe, Friday, May 15th. You have a great day, you be blessed, and stay safe.